Okay, and my video just cut, so I guess we're gonna do part two. My morning alarm went off, but surprise, I'm awake already. Because my body is just like buzzing. I was speaking to facilitating, and really just that state, that unordinary state of consciousness, which it is unordinary, it is unordinary compared to the norm, compared to what is normalized. That's what they call, the state that shamans go into. And, but it was just a realizing that it was bringing that state. It's not a state. So it, like the words are, this is where words start to break down, but bringing that state, that energy, that way of being into life, into all of life, versus that just being a place that is visited when I'm facilitating. And there was just something that opened, and it was cool because I felt this, there was an associated sense in the body when I noticed that, because I noticed like, oh, when I'm facilitating, the energy drops into the belly. There's like a really rooted, grounded energy, and it drops out of the head, out of the heart, and it just drops straight down. So it was just very interesting, And so it was that part of this path was a teacher and has been a teacher. And, I don't know what will come of that. If ceremonies are facilitated in the future, then they'll be facilitated, but it's not something I seek out. It's not something that I'm not trying to heal people, but it's just something that may come. And it's it's just been a really big teacher in that way. And so I think psychedelic ceremonies for me have been an integral part of this process, but it's been in a very unique way, not just as a participant, but as a facilitator. And it's almost like I have to laugh at myself, because it's almost this thing where I just have to acknowledge that this thing was so out of whack that it needed, participating was not intense enough. It needed to go to the next level, whatever, of it needed to take on that role of initially thinking that it was gonna help people, and then life did this little flip-flop and was like, gotcha, bitch. Actually, this is for you. And then there was a dropping away of wanting to help people or doing it to try to help people. It's just doing it for the joy, for the joy that comes. And so it's I just have to laugh at that making fun of myself that this thing was so out of sorts that life was oh no, the regular level shit is not enough for this one. We gotta up the bar a little bit. That's what I needed. I needed the intensity. There's something wired here that just required, it needed that intensity for stuff to finally sink in. Because it's so hard-headed and just such a big, arrogant know-it-all. So it's just, I just have to laugh at myself. That's funny. That's a good laugh. So the body and facilitating, the feeling of facilitating in the body was very interesting, because there were just all of these different ways that I was shown that there's no one here controlling the body. I would have experiences too. And it's actually cool that different psychedelic experiences, there was almost like a little kernel in so many different ones that all, I realize now, all pointed to this. And it came in different ways. Sometimes it came in a vision, or like if in an actual experience, but it was all, and the mind afterwards and the ego would always try to make something of it or like make a meaning of it. And it's only now in retrospect, after so much identity has fallen away, that I can look back and see that like, oh, it was all pointing, all of it pointing back to this one thing. And just the mind will just do circles trying to make meaning and trying to avoid seeing that it's all pointing back to this one thing, all of it. And so there were experiences that I would have of what one might call an ego death, or just experiences where there was just suddenly that there were a few times where this happened, and this has even happened like not on psychedelics too, but all pointing back to identity. And experiences of just suddenly feeling like me, can't breathe. I can't make myself breathe. And there was just panic of like, holy shit, I'm going to die. I can't breathe. But then, and the mind would just panic, total panic. But then what would be realized after a little bit of panic, of just settling back into the body and being like, oh, there's just breathing happening. And it's just me, identity, that thinks that it's the one doing it. And so suddenly when that ability to try to control that is taken away, there's a total panic and a feeling of dying, but then there's a realizing of like, oh, it's just breathing. So recently something that kind of came forth in a meditation, which was so gorgeous. There was just like a real settling and like a pulling away of identity from the body to such a degree that there was just like this, is this what breathing feels like? This is incredible. This is gorgeous and simple, so simple and effortless. And there was no like trying to do it. There was no piece of this identity that was controlling it. It was just this like subtle little movement and this subtle little sensation. It was just so simple, so effortless. I can't even describe it with words, but I was just like, this is gorgeous. So gorgeous just to feel the breath, to feel the breathing, and just realizing like, wow, I think I'm really like feeling just the breathing, just the simplicity of just the breath, maybe for the first time. And it was gorgeous, so gorgeous. So there have just been all these little nuggets, these little kernels from both facilitating experiences, facilitating and just participating in psychedelic ceremonies and it was always the simple stuff, like always the really simple stuff. It was never the flowery stuff or the big visions or the big messages. And that stuff was I always found was just like mind stuff, distractions make you, like, but there's just like, these kernels of just like raw, like pure simplicity that the mind would try to make stories about, but now there's a seeing that it was all just pointing back to the same thing. Back to the, and the body has been such a central piece of that. Of like, it's just the breath. And nothing else is needed for that. It's just the breath. The simplicity of the breath. There's nobody breathing. And it's weird because the mind like mimics that sensation that like, I'm the one breathing. But it's just the breath. There's a train coming, so I think that's my cue to end here. End part 2. Take care.